Hello, everyone. Ian Hamilton with Good Virtual Reality. In case you're new here, you can become a subscriber at goodvirtualreality.com. Many episodes of this podcast head out over email first to paid subscribers before publishing everywhere to your podcast platform of choice. Thank you to my founding members and paid subscribers for supporting the production of this independent journalism directly. Today, I'm joined by KG, a VR artist who has been focused on the practice of immersivism. KG, where are you tuning in from today?
Hi, I'm K Guillory, and I'm tuning in from the East Coast.
Awesome. So we're in the same time zone. I was just organizing a chat over the weekend across the complete opposite time zones. And it's one of the things I love about VR is when you have to do that, it really shows the passion for people. And I'm sure you're used to this because one of my uh, first articles that I had on goodvirtualreality.com was about one of your pieces. It was you painting a furry, and I want to start there in understanding just what was involved in getting basically a furry into your living room to paint them.
So basically, you can do this with many social platforms. If they have the ability to have green screen, that's what we used. So I scanned my living room using a LiDAR program in my iPhone. Then we pop that into Unity. We create a map from it. And then we put that into VRChat. And then we put in a toggle. You want to put in a local toggle so that when you toggle it, you see your actual space and that the person that's with you does not see a green screen of death flooding their eyes. It really helps with interactivity and kindness. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but yeah, that's the local toggle is a lifesaver. So then we do that. My Whispers, a participant, could see everything that was there. And so he was able to interact with the environment and comment on the decor of the place while I could actually see him on my real couch.
And so this is immersivism. Is this an example of immersivism? And can you explain what immersivism is?
So Immersivism, which is an emerging art movement, it's been around very niche. We think that it's been around for at least 30 years, but retroactively, we're calling it Immersivism because we're finally voting on a name. It never really had a name before. It is when you make fine art about virtual worlds, digital life, cyberspace. So a very quick way to remember it is impressionism plus the internet equals immersivism. That's how it works.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what other artists are working in this space, and what is the sort of that's a very broad stroke there. That can include a lot of different types of media. So,
It
can you
is,
walk
but
me through some of the examples?
there's another movement that was just as broad when we called it Flux. Flux was a very broad art movement that was around the 60s, had Yoko Ono, a lot of musicians. But switching back to this, the artists that are involved actually, I believe you pronounce her name Bibby Hansen. I tried to find somebody pronouncing her name online. I know how to spell it. Or it's either Bib Hansen or Bibby Hansen, but she was part of Andy Warhol's Factory. She is a flux artist who came into Second Life during the 2000s. She and Patrick Lickey are two known artists who formed the art collective Second Front. Now they operated in the name of Flux more, but what they did, their machinima and their virtual art like exhibitions gave way to what we consider immersivist art. So it's photography, it's sculpture, it's digital physical, anything basically of almost any medium that you could think of, you could throw it into immersivist practice as long as you're making art that is reflecting cyberspace or you're creating art from within the internet. You are the one who is immersed. You
Uh,
are the one. It's you that is immersed. You're speaking about immersivity of the internet. That's really where the name kind of comes from. We are the
and
ones that are immersed.
some of your art, you're not actually looking at the canvas when you paint on it. Is that right?
Yes. Oh, and to answer earlier, also current immersivist Bryn O considers herself an immersivist. Patrick Moya also was given his blessing to call some of his work immersivist. Nicole Stenger is also a proud immersivist. We have more artists. Reverse Butcher held an immersivist art show in Ballarat, Australia last year. So we have plenty of artists. There's a lot of them. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Blind canvas, or what was it, blind contours? What was that? Explain that to me. And the reason I'm asking is because when you're in headset, you can't always see your canvas, so I'm trying to
Right.
understand the mechanics here.
So some artists like me will want to draw landscapes and people, but we don't want to, we're working with VR and we don't want to take off our headset. The answer to that is called blind contour. It's blind contour painting or drawing. It's usually drawing, but you basically will sync the movement of your eyes with the movement of your hands. And if you trust what your eyes are beholding in front of you, then you will be able to paint someone on a canvas without looking at it. And that's how you can translate a digital memory to a physical canvas.
So with painting the furry, it was you're immersed, the subject is immersed, and then you're switching back and forth between being sort of in the same shared environment, the environment they see, and switching to your physical viewing your physical environment in order to paint on that canvas. And then there's another type of art where you're not even looking at the canvas, you're sort of immersed back in that space with another person or perhaps with yourself. Am I getting a good grip on the sort of range of modes of painting here?
Yes, that's one of the modes of painting. Another mode of painting is that you are speaking of an immersed memory. I have known immersivist. There's an immersivist called Kikta. And Kikta works with the Strange Pair Art Gallery, usually can go by the Strange Pair within VRChat and find his works there. Kikta has once painted a Final Fantasy online memory where he was riding around in a vehicle with his friends. Now, most people who don't understand Final Fantasy, it's the MMO Final Fantasy. If they look at that painting, they're going to go like, what is this? It's just floating nameplates, and they'll kind of get that it's online, but they won't really understand that that painting is expressing the joy of being with your friends and riding around in a, fun little vehicle online inside an MMO. That is
Uh,
like spending time with your friends painting memory. That is also immersivist. It's speaking to the joy of being online with your friends.
so, got it. I've got a good grip here, I think, on what immersivism is, and then I want to go to my broad questions that I sometimes throw at my podcast guests here, and it's a good pairing for the subject matter here. Can you describe a moment of presence in VR that really sticks with you? Perhaps your favorite moment of presence in a headset.
One of my favorite memories most of the time is when I'm with my friends. One of them was when my friends and I watched Severance together in VRChat, and we just had it up on a big, screen. And we would meet regularly. And it was because of all the time that I had spent with them, all the memories and all the things that we had ever been through. And yet we were still here. We're still meeting after years of knowing one another. And we're sitting down and we're watching a movie together. And I love when we do that. So that's one of my happiest memories. And I think the other memory I have is when I'm just like, I made this map. It's called Gates. And it's in VRChat. And it's just an island. And it has a giant gate that actually leads out to Resonite. If you were to make that your home world and you log out and you make the Gate 2 map in Resonite in your home world, then you're effectively using a gate to hop between one world and another. So I have a memory of sleeping and looking up at the forest. In fact, that's on my sizzle reel on Blue Sky. It's the first picture of looking up at that blue forest. So I really love that.
You've fallen asleep in headset before? Is that what you're saying?
I have. Like, during a time, I was very tired and I kind of wanted to like emotionally recover. And so sometimes I would just go to sleep in VR. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I've been trying on the Vision Pro, and I get close, but like I'll end up removing the headset before I nod off because it's just a little too uncomfortable. I can't get the quite the right position. Always flipping on different sides, but I'm close there. I'm almost there. How did you get into VR in the first place? What was your first experience with it?
My first experience with it was a friend told me about it from a different game. And he was showing everybody around on a Twitch stream. And everyone was like, whoa, VR is cool. It was like 2017, 2018, something like that. It was before the pandemic. And then I looked at that and I thought, this is fantastic. I had just started my art research I wasn't sure where to take it because I knew. So basically, I had this show in Detroit, an art show in Detroit with Red Bull House of Art. And I painted these Second Life avatars. And I did them in the context. Retroactively, I consider this to also be immersivist. There's these women that are just like living on the internet, they're painting these Second Life avatars. They're representing someone who is eternally online and, just kind of living within cyberspace. And I painted about the nature of the internet using the Second Life avatars as kind of a visual anchor for people to relate to. And I did that show and everyone loved it. And that's why I'm so confident. People just have to get used to the idea of what these paintings are going to go into as far as subject matter, and then they'll be like, "It's not a big deal." They'll wrap our heads around it. They just have to simmer a little bit. But then when I saw VR, I thought, "This is the next step. This is the next step of this type of art. So let me go over there." And I said goodbye to my friends. At the time, I was hanging out with my girlfriends. We lived on this little island. It was called Juicy. If anyone knows the blog Juicy Bomb, that was my crew. It still is. I still love them. We're still friends. And I said, okay, bye, girls. I'm going VR. And I went over there and then I began my journey there. And it's been, see, I got there in like 2019.
What was your
So
headset?
yeah.
What was your first headset that you got your
Oh
hands
my
on now?
gosh. It was a Quest 2. It was a Quest
Okay.
2. Yeah. So
And
I came in the Quest 2 era.
and you hooked up PC pretty quickly there, or you already had a PC?
Yeah, I had a PC. Like, I had a gaming PC. If you can handle Second Life, you can handle VR, basically. You'll be alright. Yeah.
How many hours do you think you've spent in VRChat or Resonite at this point?
Without looking at my Steam profile?
Yeah, give me
Uh,
hundreds of hours. Are we talking thousands of hours? What are we like? What's the scale here of
wait,
how many hours you spend in cyberspace?
geez, I don't even know anymore. VRChat tells me I've had about 3,000 hours on total, but that's not including Quest, because I was also a Questie. For a little
Mm.
bit too. And then I expanded out. I just tried it out with Quest first, and then I went, okay, I really love this. Let me put this on PC. I don't know. I guess over 3,000 would be my guess.
I want to get some more, I don't know, metaphorical questions your way
Yeah.
now. But since I've loved talking to you over the years, we met or started talking when you were writing for Upload VR, and you always had a very different mindset about the VR market and about the value of this sort of thing than the average person sort of buying this to play games. And I want to understand, like, do you I don't want to contain you within the word of games here. Like for example, VR chat is distributed on Steam and it has to list off categories that are like genres of Steam, but it's very much not a game. It's a social hangout. How do you think of the value of why you put the headset on? Is the value of putting a headset on to you?
Have to maybe explain it this way. An artist is somebody that is constantly going to their canvas or their sculpting station or whatever they work with, because there's a lot of materials out there. And they are constantly going there in search of the truth of themselves, the truth of the world. They are always trying to create something on canvas, on the table, in their workshop of something that they're looking for something. And I think that when I began this, I was just following a path of curiosity. I really wanted to know, where was my research going to lead me? There was some kind of truth out there that I was going to find. And I just kept following that. And I think that I stay on this path because I must see how the story ends. I need to keep going. There are times when I went to Resonite and I set up, like at each platform I visit, I set up an atelier and a workshop. And I just want to see what happens. Let's make some art. Let's make some immersivist art. Kind of art is going to pop up this time. And I think when I got to Resonite, it was kind of like when a character in a movie kind of gets towards the end of a simulated world and things start to kind of run out. And it's like, this next part is the part that I built. And that was very exciting, constantly and chasing that feeling of what's next. Do I
Mhm.
build a sidewalk here? What comes after this? Is it up to me? Is it up to all of us? How do we keep going from here? That's kind of more of where I am, like, in my mind. Even when I was working for Upload and I actually just just also to say this too, I simply decided to pivot back to art. That was literally the only reason I left Upload. I had a great time, and now I'm just back on this path again because I feel like this is something that I really need to finish. I've been doing this for long enough, you know. Um, I just think that we're constantly looking for the truth in this art and in art in general. And when you find something like this, when you find this major chain of research and it's calling you, you answer the call. You do not turn away from it. This is
Mm.
art with a capital A. This is what capital A art is, the experimental stuff. What's next beyond here? That's what we want to find out.
So Fruxius is um, the head of development over at Resonite, and I can't even remember the name of the project. What do you remember? What the name of the project was that they came over from?
Neos?
Yes, Neos. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
and I'm happy to let it just fade into memory, um, because, I see a kindred spirit out there in what you're doing and kind of my own focus on this medium. You know, you see billions of dollars thrown at this medium by Meta investing in it, funding a lot of really interesting things, but also haphazardly being sort of thrown at self-serving work. Stuff like, like VRChat runs on Quest, it runs on PC, but over time, it feels like PC has won a battle here for doing what you want to do with your art. So when I see Resonite chipping away month after month on features that its users want, and I see Fruxius out there doing that, they just left one day, Neos, and started this thing again from scratch. And it's what a lot of people really want and need in this space. There were those Doctor Who fans that were building TARDISes inside of Resonite, and it was just magical because um there's something there's something that's really hard to describe about what you can do in a fully embodied space that has multiplayer by default and lets you build something very quickly that just existed a few minutes ago only your imagination. I'm taken back to my childhood very quickly there of like meeting with friends and planning out what we're going to do all summer and the forts we're going to build. Actually building the fort never quite matches what you imagine it to be because of
Yeah.
how difficult it is to use physical materials to hammer boards into trees. And your imagination can fill in a ton of the gap there, which is the magical thing about being a kid and having that kind of tool set. You don't necessarily need to have exactly what you set out to, even though it also is very hard. With VR and building in spaces like Resonite or VRChat, you very much have the ability to build those things as you imagine them much more. And it's one of the reasons I keep at this, that I'm never leaving it. Kind of like I love the philosophy there that you were going towards. I'm going to see this as far as I possibly can,
Yeah.
and see where it goes. And when I look at Resonite, like it's let me go back and frame this a different way. I hear a lot over on places like X. I see the screenshots coming out of there. I see it in Reddit a lot, where these people got sucked into the VR market by the headsets only costing $500 or $300. They've been shown a taste of this VR by a headset that only costs a couple $100. But in many, 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 many cases, these people have never owned a PC. They've only owned an Xbox or maybe a PlayStation, and they've never really had a whole powerful PC right there to just make weird ideas on. It's always been a protected ecosystem. I have a tough time hearing those people discount the power that you get out of your system. What you're describing is just so wholly different than that lockdown kind of console like space. You say you were a Questie for a while. What did that mean? And did you need the power of your PC to do the things you wanted?
I was well, sometimes at first I was a Questie that means like you were using your Quest headset to log on to like VRChat. That's usually what you're called. You're called a Questie. And it can be sort of a derogative term, but I just mean it as slang. Yeah, I was a Questie. It's cool. If you don't have time, if you're traveling, you just go Questie mode and connect that way. It's fine. It's whatever. I still use mobile games a lot. Like Body Combat's a pretty good fitness program that I like using on Quest sometimes. But nowadays I go to a gym. I did start out with Supernatural and now I've moved my way up to the gym and weightlifting. So that's pretty fun. Yeah. And then what drew me towards VR were more deeper experiences that were only accessible on PC. Absolutely had to go view them. And since I've got a capable PC, I just hooked it up. Dual desktop makes it really easy. So that's my tool of choice.
Yeah, so you said it very succinctly there. I went on and on trying to dig at this in different ways, but very deep experiences that are only accessible on your PC. And that's true of many, many people out there, but they don't shout about it. They don't scream about it too often on message boards. They just they're happy out there. They've got their PC in their corner. They're able to render a beautiful virtual world with it, and they really don't need too much more out of the world. They need to get food, they need to get water, they need to pay rent. But outside of those things, their PC is their car, it's their workspace,
Yeah.
and they're very happy with it as soon as like, the only time that really matters is when the next graphics card comes out, and they need to kind of think about, "Oh, how do I upgrade to the next, high quality world?" And it's a very simple thing what I'm describing, like, there's millions of people out there that do this, that live inside these PC worlds, that will never they were maybe played around in Quests. Maybe they used an HMD to Quest HMD to use virtual desktop and stream across the systems. But like the love of PC and the openness that you feel when you're messing around with a machine you own never left them, and it keeps coming back. And so I love what Resonite is doing. VRChat, there's incredible worlds inside VRChat that are popping up all the time. And it's all rooted in this openness of PC. And it really makes me wonder how Meta shifts to this new era, if they've had such a big pullback from Horizon Worlds and from sort of forcing people into the Quest ecosystem. There's plenty of people that all they want to do with that HMD is have it load VR chat for them the moment it comes up onto their face. And like every second that they're not going straight to VR chat or Resonite for that matter, or virtual desktop to get to either of those places is wasted time. It's like you're just beating a dead horse trying to push a person into a place they don't want to go. When did you get your first PC?
My first PC ever?
Yeah.
Uh, and when I came out of, let's see, mine or one that I shared with a partner. Geez. Let's see, first PC ever in my house that I paid rent on, probably be 2003,
What did you do on that
2006.
machine? What was your first time? What were you playing around with on that PC?
MySpace, looking at Kingdom Hearts trailers, waiting for it to buffer. Old YouTube, shout out to that. Let's go. And we first heard Tara Hikaru singing, and we're like, I'm gonna love everything about this. It was that. That's the first major memory is not just MySpace, but like Kingdom Hearts. This
Uh,
thing's happening
s
popular culture. You gotta get it. Yeah.
so you're saying MySpace, so, like, did you were you w was your MySpace very weird? Did you really hack the HTML on your MySpace and you were doing all
Uh
sorts of weird stuff with it?
I just copied it from another site. They were like, "Yeah, here's the HTML layouts." I'm like, "Ha, cool. Copy paste. Goodbye. I don't have time for this." But I remember, I dated a guy for a real long time. He was a regular. They called it like Grease Monkey or something like that. And he was a real coder guy. We're still friends to this day. But he's just like he's always been too into that. I'm not that person. but, congratulations to everybody that is. That's
Well,
not me.
it's funny that you say that because I mean, that's pretty much me too, right? Like, I'm waiting for this moment. I'm messing with Claude code and messing with AI generated code specifically. Like, I'm not using it for any other purpose other than I don't want to learn another language in order to make the computer do what I want it to do. And then there's this tool that kind of knows the language for me, and so I can implement my ideas very quickly using that tool as the intermediary. I suppose I should ask you, since you're the artist in the room here, what is your feeling about AI and your approach to it?
I don't use it. Um, like, I've played around with, like, chatbots, when they came out, because that's how I just see them as chatbots, and there was one that came out, and I kept testing it to see the ceiling. When is it gonna hit the ceiling? And what I call hitting the ceiling, because I used to mess with AI, not AI, AOL chatbots, that's what it was. It was, the Alice, if people remember the Alice brain from way back then. And it was before AOL bought those chatbots to deliver, like, weather and stuff. Do you remember that? It was on AIM, and they made the chatbots available on AIM, and you could message one and get the weather and whatever else. They were testing that out back then.
Oh, I might have missed that era, but yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine it. Amiibo was my college days when it pulled in all the different chat. I had one chat app to chat with everyone on all the different networks. It's so crazy
Ye
the different eras, right? Like 2
Yeah.
years apart and suddenly the entire internet is different.
Yeah, so I was just testing it to see if it would hit the ceiling, and hit the ceiling for me means you start repeating the same phrases. You get to a point where the bot cannot intelligently speak back to you anymore, and that's when you start to really feel the walls, the ceiling of this thing, the confines of its limits, and once I hit that ceiling, I stopped using it. I was like, "Eh." But, I have, like, messed around with a couple of other chat bots, and, well, of course, we call them LLMs now, but the proper bots of the days of yore. There's this one that we had in Second Life, and it was based off of Brian Brain. I think it was called Brian. It's a very, very old program. And basically, when you talk to it, it would start to assemble its feel of language, and it would learn the rules from you. So it was a small language model instead of a large one. And you could just, I don't know, say whatever to it, and it would learn from you. So I had one, and there's a guy named Hadet who is another immersivist. Actually, he runs an immersivist collective called Sandbox Not Found, and they operate out of Second Life. They're completely independent. They're this punk group, and they run art programs, and they like for people to come over, and they do like build of the week. They encourage people to get into sculpture and creative activities because they want to keep the arts alive. That is also what an immersivist does. We care about community and education. And if you want to take care of the internet, then you have to do something about that. So, but Hadet had a bot. He was more into like military sims back then. And he had these bots laying in the ground, and he had these Warhammer milsim people running around. And of course, they were talking in Warhammer language. So his bots were very corrupted. And mine, that I had put in a diner, I had taught it all this cutesy, flowery language. Oh, you're so cute. I love pancakes, things like that. So I said, every time we spawned out a copy of the bot, it would create a copy of itself naturally. You're never going to get the original out of your inventory once you put it in there. It's like the Soma problem, right? So you win or lose the coin toss. So we're spawning out this bot, and I put mine next to his, and it starts to learn the most inane stuff. Like it starts to curse. And once I bring it back to the diner, it has now become a diner bot veteran of speaking of war sometimes. So it's it starts going, "Oh, let's make pancakes. Burn the pancakes." I'm like, "Bruh, you become destructive. You ruined his brain." It was really funny. But you can turn the learning mode off on these bots so they're not just taking in whatever trash somebody says that's walking down the street. But it was still really funny. So the small language models, they were just very silly. They were very silly. But
Uh,
you easily hit the ceiling on them because they're tiny. They're just little babies. But these LLMs, yeah, I tried it. You hit the ceiling after a while. And I'm like, I mean, I can't even get Siri to like, we were like, "Hey Siri, that thing I just did, do it again." Shit, it is again.
you just
She's
activated
quiet.
yours,
No, no, no,
didn't
no,
you?
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It works one day and then it doesn't work the next, and
Like,
it's madness.
Yeah. And it'll just like mess up and do something very silly. Like I told it to remember, set an alarm for this. And it's like, I'm set an alarm for tomorrow. I'm like, why can't you set an alarm for now? And then I was like, wait, what time is it? And then she told me the time and it was already past the alarm time that it would have been set for. And I was like, oh, that's my fault. But other times it's her fault. So I don't know, silly stuff. I had also people ask me, well, does Immersivist, do you accept AI? No. The reason why, and let's talk about this now. Let's say you've generated an image for an art show. You want to submit it to a gallery. Okay, so you send it into the gallery. And let's say it's a virtual gallery, VRChat or Second Life or any other place in cyberspace. So you put that picture up, and then another artist sees it, who paints, and they are able to prove that your image generated actually has some of their work mixed into it. And because of that, they can file a DMCA claim. Now the entire gallery is in trouble because of that one image. Absolutely not. I'm not going to put AI in the gallery. What is wrong with you? No, I
It's
don't want to deal with that. I
it's
don't want to
there's
deal.
so many. You've gone straight for the jugular of like the worst possible use cases
Yeah.
of AI and the most destructive use cases of it. Yeah, I'm still back on my like I don't want to learn a constructed language. Like there's a language made by humans to tell a computer what you want to do. And like I'm not going to waste large portions of my life hours learning some like artificial language just to tell a computer what I want it to do. I'd very much like to say to my holodeck, construct for me a space and then build it to very specific parameters and then start messing with the furniture, right? Like take this chair and put it over there, take this wall and make it brown, make this a slanted roof. Like I want to speak in human language to my computer. I don't want to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, any of them. I don't want like plus plus. I don't it just feels like wasted mind effort, wasted hours of my life in order to learn a language that's only going to work on a subset of computers for the next 5 to 10 years. Like I'd much rather just wait for the computer to understand what I'm telling it to do. That's where you sort of joked about it there back with how stupid Siri can be, and hopefully I didn't just invoke her by saying her name right here. But yeah, that's the extent of my use case of AI is just not wanting to learn a language just to tell a computer what I want it to do.
Yeah, no, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. So
All right. So let's see. Going back to your art, what is the largest piece of art you've ever made?
that would be the 24 by 36 painting. And you could go larger. Then in the world of fine art, so in the world of fine art, everybody loves a big, big painting. That's great. Who are you going to sell it to? Who's buying it? Who's got the money for that? Have I introduced myself to those buyers yet? No, I have not. In fact, I'm in the process of prototyping a more sellable line of art now. So fine art is at its core, it is high end aesthetic research. That is why I refer to my work as research. It's because we're researching this new aesthetic. We're researching the different mediums that can go into it. We're researching different methods of making it. And our team of generous artists who have donated their time, shout out to everyone, Reverse Butcher, Yuka Fox, Mildian, many, many more, Marchi, Essek, Aradine, and Bryn, lots of people who have been involved in this. It's just high-end concept research at its very core. It's expression, it's individual expression, but it is also research. And that research, what happens is that we're figuring out how this art works, right? And then all of our research will end up being learned by someone like a university professor. That is how the original immersive art education courses came about, was the previous generation of artists who I would now refer to loosely as immersivist or proto-immersivist. They came into virtual worlds and they were researching how to work with it. And that's how we have those university courses now. Somebody had to find out about painting because the previous generation of those artists did not learn, did not experiment with translating virtual memories into physical paintings until about the 2010s. And that's when that really started to come about. with Patrick Moya. Patrick Moya was the first one to do it, and then Bryn followed. Patrick Moya printed out virtual photography and added acrylic paint to it. Bryn, who is a known artist in Second Life, and she also works with VR. She has an experience out called Lobby Cam. She started actually painting the worlds that she created, and she started painting her avatar. And she called her type of art making immersiva. But like, let's say this art, okay, right now it's considered avant-garde, experimental. For some places, they actually consider it too radical to show yet. So they're just kind of like, well, we'll see how this does on the market, right? So then my next job is to prototype this art into something sellable. Well, that matters with size because the average living room is kind of small. We're looking at like middle class households to upper class households, more households that have less money, they're going to have less space in the wall. So that does matter when you're thinking about making art. You're thinking about making prints. Prints kind of go for like every income bracket, but then like middle class and up, you're looking at original pieces of art that you can kind of sell. And that's the big paintings, the big ones. I've got like a 40 by 60 here, I think. I've got a 30 by 49 hanging out that I haven't put anything on yet. So my biggest canvases in this studio right now are like 50 inches, but I haven't put anything on them yet. It has to be something really good. It has to be something very high end. It's got to be something that's really, really worth the money. And I believe that after this next round of research, where I'm back in Second Life, I built a workshop there, and now I'm matching my paintings to decor that Second Life users are using to decorate their stores and their individual homes. If I can make art that matches those decor schemes, it's more likely that somebody of that income bracket is going to be able to pick up a painting. And that's how it works.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a formula to that.
If you had someone who was young and getting into art for the first time, maybe they're a teenager and they don't have much money, what path would you recommend for them to go if they're curious about VR and immersivism? What would be their first steps, their second steps, their third steps?
So we've run actually educational, and also shout out to Dr. Steve Geinup, who is also identified as an immersivist. He ran educational programs for a very long time, ever since the 90s, out of video games. So he knew what was coming. He did that preliminary research. And what Steve did was he taught people about making art, but within video games. It's really freaking smart. I did an extension of that by you can teach people how to do blind contour drawing within VR. Like I can teach you how to draw. Even if you don't think that you can, I can teach you. I can talk you into it. It's very, you just have to learn how to take your time. Takes a lot of dedication, but you can do it. And I think that for young people, probably something like blind contour drawing or beginning photography. Photography is great as an educational tool for art because you've got a camera built into the client, right? And people are just, the first thing you're going to teach somebody is how to frame a shot. And that also can tie into education with painting because, again, it's about framing the shot. You're just setting it up to paint it. It's the same thing, composition. That's all it is. It's composition. And you can do that. You can run workshops with both of those tools. Now, for painting, if you don't have any materials and you don't have a lot of money, that's okay because Vera's got you. You've got canvases, canvas prefabs that work in VRChat already. There are some groups like Life Drawing. There is Cerulean Forests. There is Whale Lodge. And then there are these young place where these young painters gather and they post their work. It's called The Strange Pair. And people of all ages go there, but especially younger artists that are putting up their work and they're bouncing these ideas off of other artists. Like, hey, what do you think? And that's a perfect place for them to learn and grow. And I think between all of these resources, like if you advance a little more as an artist and you want more, GOG is right here, and they are an arts foundation, and they help to share like opportunities. They help people to network with one another. Something greater to get mine artists to bridge the gap from being a painter in VR, being a painter online, to where can I get my work into a gallery? Where across the world is my work going to fit? So you could realistically start as someone that's kind of new to art, find your niche, find something that interests you, and then all of a sudden you could get your first show somewhere, be it a coffee house for a group show in a gallery. I mean, there was also an art show in Japan, virtual photography art show. 200 participants, I believe. It was about 200 participants, and they had like a photo book and everything. People actually traveled to Japan to see their work on the walls. And when they came back, they kind of understood what's at stake. You know, how does it feel to have your work on a museum wall? Do you want that feeling again? Well, then it's time for you to chase a thesis in your art. Find something that is at stake within your work and go chase it.
Interesting, a thesis. That's funny. That's starting to talk about the language that I started off my good virtual reality site on. I believe good VR is discovered.
Yeah. Like the question with art is, what problem is your art trying to solve? Anybody that's listening that's an artist out there, what problem is your art trying to solve? That's a good question to ruminate on.
Let's throw that question back at you. What is your art trying to solve?
What type of art is good enough for someone who loves virtual worlds? What type of art is good enough for them to want to put on their physical wall?
Mm.
What is something that speaks to them? What is something that motivates them? Like when you put a painting on a wall, you're going to be looking at it for a really long time. The painting that I first see when I wake up and the last when I go to sleep is one of a spring scattering stars, I believe it's called. Yeah, it's a painting and it's by Edwin Blashfield. And that is, it's just to me, it's like the beauty of creation and is one of my favorite paintings. It's a woman that stands on the sickle moon and she is scattering stars in the sky. And is that not the feeling of being in VR and building a world? You're scattering, literally scatting elements about and creating a
Mm.
world right in front of you. So that to me, it's a real reflection. Now, what about that as immersive art? What is going to motivate somebody to say, yes, that speaks to my experience and I want that on my wall?
Good luck with your journey there. It's a very focused question, what you're trying to answer. I love it. Yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of learning there and a lot of discovery in the next little bit, I think. Is there anything else that you think people should know about your work and about who you are and the direction you're headed?
Yes, we are. This is a decentralized art collective. Immersivism is not an art, it's decentralized art movement. Sorry, it's not a collective. If you visit immersivism.com, you'll see different artists. And if you believe that your work is immersivist in nature, you can fill out a form and we'll pop you on the site. No AI, sorry. And we also have an art show coming up. We want art that people are making, showing their opinion of the internet. Go crazy. And we want to see what you got. Obviously, there's no fee to submit. And we're just going to put this show across the internet, not just in VR, but in other platforms as well. So get at us.
In Star Trek The Next Generation, there's an episode where Wesley Crusher gets like basically a hollow disk from his dad, and he puts the program into the holodeck and then walks onto the holodeck, and there's his dad who basically recorded a message for him when he was going off to like Starfleet for the first time.
Hmm.
And he gets to stand there looking at his dad as his dad tries to present himself at a specific moment in time and pass that along to their kids. We still don't have that recording format. We still don't have easy technology to pass along a moment like that to our children or to other people all the way around the world. But I still feel like we're ever so close. And I feel like you're going to be one of the first people to discover whatever that format is and however it's possible to capture a whole session and replay it back for someone. It's going to be a part of immersivism, and I can't wait to see what you do with your art in the future.
Oh,
Is there
thanks.
anything else you want to close off on here?
I definitely want to thank my predecessors in the immersivist community for putting together the beginning pieces of this movement for me to base my own research out of. I'd like to thank Bruno, Patrick Moya, all of the artists that were a part of the virtual, what is previously known as very loosely, unofficially, as the virtual contemporary art movement from the 90s to, the 2010s, basically. And thank them for everything that they've done. And Tom Furness, if you're out there listening, I told you I'd do it. I told you I'd do it. I told him that at AWE, but he thought, oh, that girl's crazy. Nope, I was totally serious. Absolutely.
Oh, I can't wait to see everything that comes out of your brain. Share it wide with the world. And I know you've got some pieces that are up in various places in VRChat, and I have to go and find them. What was it? The one we talked about? You've got a piece up in a bar somewhere in VRChat, right?
Yes, Horse Canyon, you can find wide open spaces there. And I used some of the rock formations, I kind of painted them quote unquote blind, but I did it in a way to where it's not just copying the sim. I think it's really important to respect the work of other people. So I don't really base worlds off of paintings off of what worlds that other people build, but that painting was kind of an exception because I just loved it so much. And I gave that painting to N Prowler, not physically, but like virtually. So he's put it up at the bar, and I thank him for his kindness in that.
Thank you for the time, KG, and good luck with your art. We'll talk to you in the future.
All right. Thank you very much.